This is the trailhead for the southernmost part of the Mount Marshall Trail. I am not in Shenandoah National Park right now, but that's where we're going. We're going to hike up this fire road about 6/10 of a mile and go into the park and then continue hiking uphill until we get to Thoroughfare Gap. And then from there we're going to hang a right and we're going to go straight up the side of a mountain known as the Peak to the summit. This is one of the lesser known hikes in the park. There's no view at the top or anything, but it's a pretty good hike from here to the top. The elevation here is about 1,000 feet, and the elevation at the summit's about 3,000 feet. So I've got 2,000 vertical feet to climb over the next couple of miles of trail. That's private property there, and this is just basically a little pull-off area off this Mount Marshall Road. I think it's Route 625. You just follow it all the way to the end, and you can park here. There's a little bit of space over here, additional parking. So park there, and here's the beginning of the southernmost part of the Mount Marshall Trail. So here we go. I'm just a short distance up the fire road, and there's a sign here with there's a Shenandoah National Park sign, and then that yellow sign says trail, and down that way I see a yellow blaze. So it looks like from here we veer off onto this footpath. So here we go. It looks like I'm actually back on the old Mount Marshall Road now. The first little bit of the hike was a little footpath which turned out to be a detour around some houses. I'm still not inside the park yet, but it looks like we're around the houses now, and so we've come back in and joined up with the old road. I've also discovered I'm having problems with my camera today. The protective shutter on the front of the lens is only opening up part of the way. When I turn on the camera, I'm able to get it open the rest of the way by pushing them open, but may have some problems with the pictures and video today. Okay, let's see. I've hiked about 6/10 of a mile, and I'm up to about 1,300 feet. And there's a National Park boundary marker there, just above the red blazing. Here's what the trail looks like right here. They've moved a couple of huge rocks here. I guess so people, even if they drive up here, they can't go up the road any further. That concrete post there has hiking mileage on it, and that other one that's turned around the other way facing into the park is probably a sign that says you're leaving the park. The trail is blazed yellow, which means that it's good for horse traffic and foot traffic. So here we go. I think it's a couple of more miles up to Thoroughfare Gap. I'm still on the Mount Marshall Road. I'm about 1.5 miles into the hike now. I'm up to 1,800 feet, and this road is pretty easy to hike on. It's steep, but it's, as you can see, it's cleared off really good. The mountain's pretty steep here. There's a look up the side of the mountain. That's the way I'm going. It's about 3/10 of a mile more to Thoroughfare Gap. And there that'll give you an idea how steep the slope actually is right there. That's going down into the abyss. For now we're going to keep hiking up this road until we get to Thoroughfare Gap. Okay, here I am at Thoroughfare Gap. The last time I was, this place looks completely different from the last time I was up here. Of course, I was up here before all the plants had a chance to grow up. This place looks completely overgrown compared to when I was up here. It was either early in the spring or late in the fall. There's the Mount Marshall Trail. That's the way I came from. So that's heading south, back to where my car is. And there's one of the National Park signposts with information on the metal bands. There's the Jordan River Trail heading that way. And way up there somewhere is the summit that I'm going to be climbing up to. There's Jordan River Trail, and there's the Mount Marshall Trail heading north, which goes on for quite a ways, miles and miles, and finally runs into Skyline Drive up at Jenkins Gap. It's only about 10:45, but I don't know if there's a good place at the summit to sit down and eat, so I'm gonna use that big rock right there and have an early lunch, and then I am going to see if I can find the trail that goes up to the summit. I know that it's not maintained, but I should be able to find remnants of it, so hopefully I can make it to the top without too much bushwhacking. Right down there is the intersection that I just showed you, Thoroughfare Gap, and while I was looking around for the trail to the summit, look what I found. There's a witness post for a Geological Survey benchmark, and there it is right there embedded into the rock. I'll take some still pics. It's really beat up bad to the point where I can't really even read the markings on it. But anyway, there it is. It's about 11 o'clock. I'm still here at Thoroughfare Gap. Just got done eating some lunch, an early lunch today. Here's a 360 pan of the Gap. There's the Mount Marshall Trail heading north. There isn't much to see here, really. Everything's totally overgrown. There's Mount Marshall Trail heading south. That's the way I'll go home. That's the way I came here. There's the signpost. That dim trail just to the right of those trees, that looks like it's probably the trail up to the summit, so I'll be heading up that way. And then down this way is Jordan River Trail. That probably was a road one time too, long ago, before the park was formed. And then there's back to the rock that I ate my lunch on. Pretty convenient spot. So now we're going to go over here and investigate this very dim, abandoned looking trail, and we'll see what we can find as we head up to the summit. I climbed the first 1,000 feet up to this point in 2 miles on the old road, but from here to the top is another 1,000 feet, and it's only about a mile up to the summit. So I got to climb the next 1,000 feet in half the distance. So it's going to be pretty darn steep. So here we go. Well, there's a shot of the trail. If you can see it, I can barely make it out, and it's pretty much going straight up the side of the mountain. It's going to be pretty steep. I hope I can continue to follow this, so here we go. Well, here's the trail. It's really hard to follow, but you can follow it if you keep your eye on the ground. There's no blazing though. It's really, really steep here. Take a look. Here's the side of the mountain. It's about a 45-degree angle, or maybe even more. And down there's where I came from. Thoroughfare Gap's down there. And let's see, let me turn around without falling off the side of the mountain. Actually, there's a blue blaze right there on that tree. There's the side of the mountain again. And here's where we're headed, straight up the side. I'm 3 miles into the hike now. I'm up to 2,600 feet. The summit's at 29 something. I've got about another quarter of a mile to go. This is one of the few places where you got to look out to some of the other mountains. This trail's been incredibly difficult to follow, and now I'm hitting a rock slide area, so I'm just going to have to hike across the rock slide and then see if I can pick up the trail on the other side. A ways back there was supposed to be a rock cairn marking a turnoff to the left, which was a shortcut. The recommended hike is the shortcut, but I went up that way a little ways. I couldn't follow the trail. It's just too overgrown, so those are bad directions this time of the year. So I'm actually taking the alternate trail, which is just kind of follows the side of the mountain here instead of going straight up, but at least this one you can sort of follow. I've had to do a little bit of bushwhacking, but not too bad. But right here is an example of where you're going to lose your trail. This trail's not blazed at all, so you just have to try and follow it. So anyway, we're going to keep going until we get to the top, or until I decide I don't want to go any further. So let's see what happens. Let's see if we can get to the top. Okay, well, I've decided this is as far as I'm going to go. I've hiked up to about 2,700 feet, and if I continue on forward, which I did for a little ways, it turns into a road which starts to go down the side of the mountain. And there's supposed to be a left turn in through here somewhere to get up to the summit, but I can't find it. It's probably just too overgrown. The summit is up there, and it's totally overgrown here, and I don't feel like bushwhacking my way up to a summit where there's no view and there's no benchmarks or anything up there. So I'm just going to say I had a good time getting this high, and I am going to turn around and carefully try and find my way back down to Thoroughfare Gap. This trail is extremely hard to follow. I would not recommend trying to get to the summit here. Maybe this time of the year anyway. Maybe when all the brush dies down, the trail will be a little easier to follow. But right now it's very, very hard to follow. And so I'm just going to turn around and start heading back down to Thoroughfare Gap. So I'll let you know when I get back there. Okay, I'm back down to where the trail going up to the peak veers left or right. There is a rock cairn sitting on top of that stump, which I think is supposed to mark the left trail. So I went up that way a little ways, and when you go up a little further, there's another rock cairn farther up. So I did hike up the left branch for a while until I lost the trail, and finally just decided I didn't want to bushwhack 2/10 of a mile up to the summit. Came down here, went this way, which is the right branch, followed that all the way past the summit but below it until it turned into a road that was starting to go down the side of the mountain away from the summit. So I turned around, came back to this point, and here I am. Now I'm going to go back this way and follow this trail down to where I ate my lunch at Thoroughfare Gap. And then when I get down there, I'm gonna take a rest. Oh yeah, one more thing. And this is going to sound like sour grapes for hiking upwards, but there's the rock cairn. And there's a look around. You can tell me where the trail is. I'd be more than happy to hear. Impossible to find this time of the year. Okay, I'm down off the peak now. I'm back at Thoroughfare Gap. There's the signpost. I'm over there drinking some water and cooling off a little bit. Just a couple, the elevation here is about 1,900 feet. Just a couple thoughts about this hike. The hike from the parking lot to here is a nice hike. It's a couple of miles. It's about 1,000 feet of elevation gain. And then from here you've got 2 or 3 different options of other places you can go to. So this part of the hike is recommended. But coming over here, there's the start of the trail up to the peak. That part of the hike, not recommended by Uncle Clark. I was not able to get to the top. Now I could have forced my way to the top by bushwhacking through brush that looks like this up at the top, but I don't want to get to the summit that bad, and I know that there's no view at the top anyway. So this part to the summit is divided into kind of 2 pieces. This first part of the trail, about halfway up, is not too hard to follow if you're an experienced hiker. But then when you get to the part where it branches to the left or to the right, you're supposed to take the left branch. I was barely able to find it, and even then, after I followed it for 100 yards or so, it was like bushwhacking, so I turned around and came back. Then I took the part that goes to the right, and I followed that up as high as it would go, and then it turned into a road, an old fire road, abandoned road, and started going down the side of the mountain. So I wasn't able to get to the summit that way either, even though the maps show that there's a spur that takes you up to the summit. So I don't know. I think you could get to the summit in the wintertime as long as there's no snow or ice. But you might have to bushwhack your way up the last 2 or 3 tenths of a mile to get to the summit. So if you want to hike to this point, and then you've got some other options of where you go from here, from Thoroughfare Gap. This part's recommended. This part up to the peak, not recommended. Well, I'm heading back down the Mount Marshall Trail, which is an old fire road, heading back down towards my car. I don't know, it's probably 2.5 miles, but it's downhill all the way, so it's going to be an easy hike. Just thought I'd turn this on for a second to give you a feel for what it's like to hike on this part of the trail. This part here is a nice, easy hike. And man, I'm still hurting from trying to get up to the summit there. Never did get to the top. But instead of bushwhacking and picking up lots of poison ivy and other such nonsense, I decided the best thing for me to do was quit while I was ahead and turn back around and live to hike another day. So I'll take a few more pictures on the way down, and sorry I didn't get to show you the summit this time. I think this is the first hike I've ever done in years where I didn't actually achieve my objective. But better to quit while you're ahead. Alrighty, well, I turn this off. And I'll get a few more shots on the way down if I see something worth taking a picture of. Still working my way down the side of the mountain on this Mount Marshall Trail. Just thought I'd show you this here. This is a pretty good view of how wide this road actually is. It starts over there. You can see where they cut into the side of the mountain, and the left side of the road there is kind of covered in with leaves, and then the right side of the road over here is the trail where people are walking, and that one tree there's got yellow blazing on it, which means that it's good for horses and foot traffic. So anyway, this looks to me like this was a major road in through these mountains before the park was formed. I'm back down to the park boundary now on the Mount Marshall Trail. I'm about 5.4 miles into the hike, and we're down to about 1,300 feet elevation. And from here, I'm going to continue on straight for about another 0.6 of a mile until we get to the very end of this road and back down to the parking area. Okay, I finally got down off the mountain. There's the trailhead, and over here is my little red car. So I'm going to get in my little red car and head home. Here's the map I used during the hike from the U.S. Geological Survey. It's two maps taped together because this hike crosses from one quadrangle into another. The northern part of this map is Chester Gap 1994, and that's the map down to here, and then you leave that map and you come on to the next map to the south, which I didn't write the name here, but it's Washington, Virginia. A lot of people call it Little Washington. So Little Washington is down here about 3 miles away from where I parked. And you come up this road. This is Route 625, which is just a gravel road. And this is as far up 625 as you can come. If you go any further, you end up on private property. So there's a little place to park here, a little circle to turn around, and here's the trailhead for Mount Marshall Trail. So you go up this way, and then right here where this red is the Shenandoah National Park boundary. So we go into the park here through the gate and then continue hiking north for a couple of miles up to here, which is Thoroughfare Gap. That's where I ate my lunch, my early lunch, and it says BM 1929. That means benchmark, and the elevation is 1,929 feet above sea level. And then the part of the hike to the peak is up this trail here called the Peak Trail. I was able to follow the trail up to here, and here it can either go to the left this way or to the right this way. At first I tried the branch to the left this way, which is the direct route up here to the peak, but I only got a little ways up, maybe to about here, and I just couldn't follow the trail anymore. It was too overgrown. So I went back down here and took the right branch, and I followed this right branch all the way around past the peak here down to maybe about here where the dotted lines end. And at that point I realized I had hiked too far past the summit, and I was starting to go downhill again. So at that point, and then a bushwhack from here up to the top, that's when I decided I just didn't want to do that. So then I turned around and followed this back down to Thoroughfare Gap, and then hiked south on this Mount Marshall Trail back down this way to my car, which was parked here. So that was the hike.